Jai Hind and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. Now that the Quad Summit is over, the smoke is kind of settled down. We are trying to decipher what exactly happened. Part 3 of the discussion of the shift of the world focus into the Indo Pacific. With me, I have Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar. Sir, thank you so much. Part 3 of our discussion. Quad is kind of now over with, but I guess there's a lot that needs to be learned from what really happened there.
Yeah, I agree with you completely because this Quad meeting was highlighted by one event. You know, the joint air exercise between Russia and China. Okay, uh, I mean, I don't know how to put it. Will it spur Quad to take on a formalized stance, or is it recognition of the fact that Quad is there to stay? Put it any way you like it. Quad, in my opinion, uh, is going to figure more and more in the dialogue as we go along. But there are a lot of interesting issues which came up in the squad, uh, right? And interesting reactions.
Yeah.
One of the most interesting reactions and something which is most relevant to the quad is the way China has reacted. China has not only, you know, it has reacted by going to Solomon Islands and having a security deal with them, having an exercise with Russia, as also carrying out a naval exercise around Taiwan with its aircraft carrier at the same time. So it's reacting, it's taking the whole business seriously. So we need to see what is so relevant or important in Quad, which has triggered all this and which is going to re-trigger many more reactions, right, in a to and fro kind of a system. So let's start.
Let's kind of start with something that created a huge amount of conspiracy in the beginning itself. Biden Saab was asked about his military support towards Taiwan. He said yes. There was a bit of a backtrack from the White House, who clarified that military support does not always mean military boots on the ground. But having said that, so one big thing came out that all the leaders kind of took a decision in saying we won't let a Ukraine happen in the Indo Pacific. How do you see that as a
Well,
opening statement, sir?
that's a very important outcome of the Quad, that they'll not let another Ukraine-like situation happen in the Indo-Pacific. I mean, that could be against Taiwan. In any case, again, as far as Taiwan is concerned, Australia, I mean, USA also dropped that one China line from its, thing.
We
So if you
discussed that
look
last
at,
time.
yeah, we discussed that last time. But then when you look at this statement of Quad, the dropping of Taiwan from one China from their website and President Biden's statement, all this means that people are pretty serious. They'll not let China do whatever it wants to do, like Russia did against Ukraine. So where all can it do all this? That's the important thing. It can do against Taiwan. That's the obvious solution, question, or rather the obvious target. It can do against any one of the outlying islands of Taiwan. It need not do against the main island of Thailand, but Taiwan has its islands dotted all over the South China Sea and some very close to the mainland of China.
Some
So it
5
can
miles or
do
something like that.
yeah, very close. It can go and do something there, and then it can do something against the LAC along the LAC. It can also grab some small island or build some island in the South China Sea. Further to the south, Paracels, it has already got Spratlys.
Spratlys probably, yeah.
Yeah, because it's been going around the Indonesian area of the Natuna Seas and all that. So they can do all that. Plus, it can do something now that it has got a toehold in the Solomon Islands. It can do something there also. Look, it might not be exactly what equivalent to Russian-Ukraine invasion of Ukraine, but it could be something akin to that. a land grab or an island grab. Is well on the cards.
He'll be also a little bit risky if he wants to hit on the Senkakus or something like that in the Japanese spectrum.
Senkakus, yeah, it's fully on the card. But the thing is with Senkakus, it's just a rock. They'll get nothing
More
out of it.
symbolic, sir.
Well, look, if you've seen what China does militarily, they do nothing symbolic. They will
That I agree with.
they will get something which is not only see anything of value you get is also incidental symbolism. So to that extent, Shenkakus are there, but then it's not. It's only that much.
Sure. Although Biden's statement, has been interpreted as sleepy Joe Biden, slippery Joe Biden, and this and that. But, I kind of look at it in a little bit of a larger picture. He probably spelt out and he's created a strategic ambiguity by, the White House toning back, him saying this 3 times. So it doesn't give you a very clear picture on what the strategic mindset in the USA is. And I personally feel it has been done on purpose to kind of keep that disbalance sort of a thing in place. Would you agree with something like that?
Yeah. It's all on the cards.
Yeah.
It could be signaling, strategic signaling, enlarged strategic ambiguity.
Yeah.
Telling China, you try it and we'll fix you. So, anything is possible.
Yeah, messaging, strategic messaging, which kind of
the
exercise that you mentioned also is a part of large-scale strategic messaging, sir. So, the IPEF, the Indo Pacific Economic, Forum, which Modi Saab was also sitting there when the thing was launched, and India and US seem to be the lead partners in this initiative. They are focusing on stuff like supply chain resilience. We've spoken about COVID vaccines and economic development and this and that. Great initiative. I think it's going to be a big fight towards China to kind of look at that. But we also see the response from China, who's kind of come up with a 5-year plan for smaller nations, smaller Pacific nations yesterday. How do you balance this out? And is this a reaction from the Chinese, or are we going to see an economic sort of a tish-tash in this region now?
See, the Chinese always knew that the Quad is going to take place on May 24th. So they've timed many of their actions in response to this. After all, China is not going to sit down and say, roll over and say, tell Quad to take over. So they are doing something. And they've taken the fight into the Quad's backyard, or rather the Australians' backyard. Right? And they're going to do something, and you'll see a back and forth reaction in the Pacific Island group. Because equally there are people in the Pacific Island among the Pacific Island leadership who don't like China. So that'll play out. But the Indo Pacific Economic Forum is something interesting. You said supply chain resilience. That's important for the simple reason that for the past 2 years we've been trying to get alternate supply chains in place. So this will enable that. And this is not a free trade agreement that you trade, tariffs and all that. That too is not there. This is just saying, okay, here's an opportunity to get away from China, part of the decoupling. All right? Now, if you decouple from China, you need to have an alternate source, and that alternate source has to be stable. And it has to be resilient. Why is this resilience built in? I mean, the way I look at it, what if China decides, okay, tomorrow he says, I'll set up a factory in Malaysia or wherever and start supplying from there. Nominally, it is coming from Malaysia, but controlled by China. So the resilience is not there. Resilience means it is outside owned, outside located, and outside supplied, and without any Chinese input.
Non-China.
So so as much as people would like to say that, look, this is all hogwash, nothing will come out of it, I think there is value, and we have to be patient about it. I've always maintained that this decoupling is not a 1-year process. It's going to be a 5 to 6 years, 10 years process. After all, the coupling with China took place over 2 decades. It can't vanish overnight.
Yeah.
It will take 4 to 5 years. And I was speaking to an economist, a banker economist. He says, look, uh, to put China on an even keel and make it less belligerent, yeah, its economy has to go down, and its economy doesn't have to go down by much. It has to go down by 10 to 15% on the long term. If 25% decoupling takes place, that effect is achieved. And if it takes place over the next 5 years also, you will see China being a more normal nation, not so aggressive. So to that extent, I think that initiative is good. The Indo Pacific Economic Forum is more of an arrangement based system rather than a trading system. It puts systems in place as alternatives to China. And in my guess, it will find favor with Europeans, who are also, which is also a big, you know, uh, market for China.
I'd like to take that up with you. So, the Europeans have their own fight with Russia right now, and whatever is happening over there in terms of their economy and the mistakes that they're making, or whatever it is, that's all separate. But the Europeans see one thing: the Russia-China alliance, friendship, no limits relationship, whatever you may want to put it as. So they kind of look at it: if you're going to trade with China, you're also trading with Russia. That understanding and that sort of a peripheral vision would come into the European Union. And we also see those countries coming up with their own Indo Pacific strategy. French, of course, are very interested separately and, of course, part of the European Union. Germans are. And we see a lot of these guys trying to now come in, and, the UK is obviously here, not part of the European Union, but part of the continent. Uh, how do you see the Europe kind of shifting domain uh, or increasing their domain of influence within this entire region, and of course for their own benefit? I'm not trying to say that they're going to be uh, you know
See, the problem with the EU is, uh, I think there's a permanent fracture between the EU and China. Okay, the last
that was
uh, uh, discussion between EU and China was,
bad.
paraphrased as a dialogue of the deaf,
uh,
right? And so things are not okay. So the Europeans also are looking for alternate markets.
hmm.
The Europeans are also looking for alternate supply sources. So it cuts both ways. The next thing is, so far, China has been coercing Europe to part with technology. See, we have to fundamentally realize China is still not heavy on technology. There's a lot of things which have happened in China. There are certain core technologies which China lacks. And there are certain core technologies which the West has. One thing for sure is that any deal, any economic activity is going to be seen through the lens of this technology transfer.
Yeah.
Slowly and slowly, right? They don't want their technology to end up with Russian arms and being used against them. Okay. As it is, I remember telling once, some of the equipment which we bought had German metallurgy and steel. Okay. And if suppose we were to use it against Europe in a given situation, their own technology is being used against them. And some of those weapon systems which we have bought are with China also. It's a fact. So the reverse can happen. A technology from China can go into Russia and can be used back against EU. So they're going to be very, very, very fussy about it. As it is, the Europeans are very fussy on these issues, right? So they're going to be even more fussy. And now I think generally people have realized that they need an alternative to China, and they found India. Whether it will come about or not, but I think that's the thinking. Unless there's a massive change in China,
That is, I mean, I really
Let's say,
don't know how to explain that massive change in China. It's not something
I know.
you kind of.
Yeah,
I thought I'll.
I mean, it's going to take a long time. It's going to take a long time
In my mind, I thought
for
I'll sum up that answer. Then I said, "Yeah, what do I say about that massive change in China? There isn't much you can say till the time the damn thing actually happens." So,
actually happens. Yeah.
yeah, so that's. I'll just rest uh, that piece of information right there. So let's talk about the joint statements. I mean, it was very interesting. Everybody, I think, all the. I wouldn't call them. I mean, in a bad way, but I'm just saying all the experts actually thought that Ukraine would dominate the entire thing. Russia opposition would dominate it, but that didn't happen, and even the mention wasn't there. What got mentioned, which was very interesting, was terrorism and two specific incidents in terms of the Mumbai attack and the Pathankot attack. There have been lot many more, but these two were kind of mentioned very specifically. How do you see that thing coming out? And of course, we all know when you're talking about terrorism, you're talking about the Indian subcontinent. How do you kind of picture that?
See, first and foremost, these two incidents being mentioned and terrorism forming part of this joint statement is an acknowledgement of India's presence there. That's the first thing,
Yeah.
right? And look, India has its concerns and it should be recorded. The moment that it gets recorded the way it has, it also recognizes that Pakistan is the problem. And Pakistan, by on its own today, is a problem for itself. Yeah, it's a fact. In fact, I look at it this way today. Probably Afghanistan is lesser of a problem than Pakistan,
More stable, sir.
more stable, and this instability can throw up terrorism, irrespective of which what's the outcome in Pakistan. There will be terrorism, and we also know most of the terrorist incidents have happened in this area. Whether it's the terrorism from Pakistan or terrorism centered around the Middle East, Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Palestine, uh, where people have used terrorism as an instrument of the state. Okay, call it hybrid war, whatever you want to call it, right? So there is going to be that has not been taken out of the equation. So keeping terrorism in focus is a sensible thing, right? And rightly kept it.
Indeed, sir. But that actually tells you, and I agree with you when you say that India's presence has been acknowledged and India's concerns more than anything else has been acknowledged. One may say that Pakistan is weak. I look at it like that. Pakistan is the most dangerous when it's weak. They are desperate. Uh, so let's talk about this whole maritime awareness that actually was brought about. It's an interesting development. I don't think it's been covered. I was trying to actually read anybody talking about it. I couldn't find much. It talks about illegal fishing and it talks about the so-called PLA militia, which is going into Philippine Sea and doing fishing and running away and this and that. No mention of any military substitute or military enhancement that could be done with this kind of an agreement. What do you think about this, and what do you think would be the military advantages?
Well, I think militarily, security wise, call it whatever you want. This Indo Pacific maritime domain awareness platform of the Quad, which is developing, is probably the most significant outcome of the Quad, this meeting. They've said illegal fishing, militia, dark uh, presence. When you say dark presence, a ship which has put all its sensors off
Yeah,
and it's going without. Right now, we've heard of dark presence in the Indian Ocean also, around the Andamans, Chinese survey ships and all. Right. Uh, the Chinese gray zone tactics also operates based on dark vessels. So if you have a awareness, and this is a public awareness, okay. Now it's okay to say that look, Chinese gray zone tactics cannot be countered because you don't know how they're operating, and especially the countries which are in the South China Sea, like Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia. Brunei. All these countries don't have that kind of technology to make them fully aware of the maritime conditions. The moment you have a domain awareness going across, it is like intelligence sharing, because it is not only fishing. Fishing is there, illegal shipping is there, dark ship movements are all covered, and these are all covered not only from ground-based systems but from the air also. Now, if you can cover fishing and illegal ships and dark ships, you'll also cover submarines. You'll also cover warships. And what's more, this is going in the open domain.
Mm.
It's not any military domain. So to build once you have this infrastructure, to build a parallel military domain is almost on the cards. I mean, you have to conflate this maritime domain awareness with the 2+2 and the intelligence sharing agreements between all the four. You conflate it, and a different picture comes out. I think this is the first step of consequence which the Quad has taken, and if they put it on ground, it will be fantastic. I mean, so all of the things are talk. If you put the Indo Pacific Economic Forum, it's the first step, logical step, or organized step at decoupling. There's no trade in that.
Mm.
If you look at the maritime domain awareness platform, intelligence sharing. The moment you have intelligence sharing and all the countries start depending on this awareness capsule, a strategy will come up. See, the maritime strategy against China. I mean, let's not hedge. We are doing all this to contain China and restrict its activities. Will only come through knowledge, and each country will have a particular game plan. All those game plans will start playing out against China, and when they start playing out, when the threat is more defined to them, there'll be more people gravitating towards the Quad. It's a very, very significant step, and I think the most significant outcome of the Quad. And India should be very happy, because this will mean that a whole lot of a joint int setup will come in. It's a practical thing which is good for us.
And anyway, matching the ocean, not matching, mapping the ocean, I think it's
Yeah.
for us to
And
duplicate
we also have to understand that China has shown a lot of interest in North Bay of Bengal.
Yeah.
And also in the
Andaman Bay.
around the Andaman Nicobars, and they are coming up in Gwadar. Remember, Indo Pacific maritime domain awareness as it appears, will have a hub in Delhi, one in Singapore in the center, and one somewhere in the west, in the Pacific. So 3 hubs exchanging information. There's a lot of information flowing and a lot of awareness.
I think the next Malabar exercise will be an interesting thing to see, because we'll be able to see.
Yeah, how that gets plugged in with this is going to have it.
Because the US always talks about interoperability of forces and stuff like that. So I think intelligence is the first step for
interoperability of forces is not so important as joint action. A coordinated, synchronous action is more important, and good intelligence, good awareness always contributes to that.
Indeed, sir. So, Prime Minister Modi's short visit, 40 hours, some 23 engagements, whole lot of stuff. The Quad meeting seemed to be the biggest one. Then there were some bilaterals and stuff like that. Interestingly, it was not all business. It was not all military. It wasn't all this thing. We see some education coming into this game, and that's something which I find very interesting, because normally in strategic forums you don't have education and fellowships and stuff like that being spoken about. What do you think about that?
I think this is a very far-reaching arrangement.
Sir.
You're talking of the 100 fellowships.
Fellowships, yes, sir.
Yeah, 25 to each country. If you see what is the nuts and bolts of this, 25 quad fellowships per country, 100 per year in STEM, subjects in the best universities in US. So they're going to be acting together. It is only natural that there will be a lot of interaction with these 100 guys.
Yeah.
There will be at best about 4 or 5 universities in US, and the quad nations and some off the table actions will take place. Subjects which will be gone into will be different. Right? They will be focused. It's all about technology.
Research.
It's
Yeah.
all about sharing research and everything. So it's got a lot of value. Just to give you an idea, even in issues where we do research in IIT Madras, the answers don't come from heaven. It is the research students who come up with answers, who come up with solutions to critical issues of technology. So this is going to get multiplied year after year, 100 students who will take it back to their countries. It's a network of technology. It's a network of knowledge. This has got a very long-term implication. All it needs is to stay the course, and you'll see technology infusion coming in. It's a different thing whether India can capitalize on it or not. That's a different story. We should take up the fellowship more. In fact, I think the Prime Minister has also said that he expects good people to ask for this fellowship. And people will, right? But more important, how do you leverage this fellowship is the question at hand for us. I'm pretty excited because you have to also say that there has to be a lot of technology cooperation and all that which has come out of this quad. So this is part of that.
Interesting, sir. So this summit, more or less, I think has.
let me put it in a different thing. No such thing was ever offered to China. China had to coerce other, technology out of the West. Here you're getting it on a plate in some manner.
You've used a very polite word, sir. Coerce.
Yeah, whatever. They blackmail, coerce, whatever.
Steal.
Right? Steal. There's no doubt. But here you're getting it upfront as a joint system, which I think is very, very important for India from an Indian perspective. If I would put it, after the maritime domain awareness, this is the second best thing in the quad. Second best outcome on this quad.
So it's been a more or less a very interesting thing. As a matter of fact, we covered it in all three parts. Geopolitics being the second part, and the first part as a baseline as to what India should focus on for itself. The Taiwan issue we spoke about. We've spoken about the current Taiwan issue, which was brought up by President Joe Biden, and of course the implications of supply chain and this and that. So it's been a whole rounded discussion that we as people who look at it have taken 3 sessions to actually discuss in its entirety. I remember the previous ones we could cover just in one. So that just tells you the scope of it, and the impact of these kind of meetings is going to grow higher and higher. And let's just wait and see, and we'll keep a track of what is going to happen in the future. Till then, we'll come back to you with another round of China Watch. There's a lot happening there, a lot of politics, a lot of turmoil, and a lot of downturns, upturns, lockdowns, virus, not monkeypox as of now, but God knows. Till then, sir, I think let's bid Jai Hind for the quad, and let's wait for the next summit for us to analyze it further. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, and Jai Hind.